I am Margaret Foster, and at 46, I thought I knew exactly who I was. The rain hammered against my workshop windows like an angry lover demanding entry, while I hunched over the most precious violin that had ever crossed my threshold. A 1721 Stradivarius, its varnish cracked and crying for salvation. My green eyes burned from hours of meticulous work, but I couldn't stop, not when perfection hung in the balance. The silver threads in my brunette hair caught the lamplight as I leaned closer, my calloused fingers tracing the instrument's wounded curves. Just a little more, I whispered to the empty room. Outside, St. Petersburg buzzed with something electric. Sirens wailed in the distance, mixing with raised voices and the rhythmic chanting that could only mean one thing: another march downtown. I'd lived through enough of them to recognize the sound of change colliding with resistance. But inside my sanctuary of wood shavings and varnish fumes, only the violin mattered. I barely noticed when the noise grew closer, seeping through my workshop walls like floodwater. Protesters streamed past my windows, their signs bobbing through the rain-soaked streets. Among them moved a figure that would soon shatter my carefully constructed world. Jennifer Henderson adjusted her microphone for the third time, fighting the chaos swirling around her. At 34, she'd covered hundreds of stories, but something about this civil rights march felt different. Her golden hair whipped across her blue eyes as she searched for the perfect angle. "This is Jennifer Henderson reporting live from downtown St. Petersburg," she began, her voice cutting through the crowd's energy. The protesters surged forward unexpectedly. Jennifer stepped backward, seeking stable ground, when fate intervened. Her designer heel found my hand as I emerged from my workshop to see what the commotion was about. The crack of bone was audible even over the crowd. "Damn!" I gasped, cradling my crushed fingers. Jennifer spun around, her perfect composure cracking. "Oh no, I'm so sorry." "My hand," I managed, staring at the swelling already beginning. She dropped her microphone without hesitation. "We need to get you to a hospital. I can't leave my shop. Your hand might be broken." Something in her voice, urgent yet tender, made me look up into those impossible blue eyes. Rain dripped from her hair onto my cheek, and for one insane moment, the pain disappeared entirely. "I'm Jennifer," she said, helping me to my feet. "Margaret." The word came out breathier than intended. Around us, the march continued, but we stood frozen in our own bubble of consequence and possibility. Neither of us knew that this collision would unravel everything we thought we understood about ourselves. "Come on," she said, guiding me toward her news van. "I'm getting you help." As we moved through the crowd, her hand steady on my arm, I caught the scent of her perfume mixing with spring rain. Something dangerous stirred in my chest, a recognition I wasn't ready to name. The Stradivarius waited in my workshop, half restored and patient. But some things, once broken, can never be repaired the same way twice. The emergency room smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. I sat on the examination table, my hand throbbing with each heartbeat, while Jennifer paced the small room like a caged predator. She'd insisted on staying, despite my protests that she had a story to finish. 3 fractures, the doctor announced, studying my x-rays. "You'll need a cast for 6 weeks. My world tilted. 6 weeks without fine motor control meant no violin work, no income, no purpose. I can't afford to stop working. Jennifer stepped closer. "What exactly do you do?" "I restore violins. That Stradivarius in my shop needs to be finished by next month." The weight of impossibility crushed down on me. "A real Stradivarius?" Her eyes widened with genuine fascination, not the polite interest I usually encountered. 1721. Worth more than my house. I flexed my good fingers, already missing their precision. As the nurse wrapped my hand in plaster, Jennifer watched with an intensity that made my skin tingle. She asked questions about wood grain, varnish techniques, the physics of sound. Her intelligence surprised me, cutting through my assumptions about pretty news anchors. "How long have you been doing this?" she asked as we left the hospital. 23 years. Started as an apprentice in Boston. "And you chose St. Petersburg because—" "Fewer distractions." The lie came easily, though the truth was more complicated. I'd fled here after my last relationship exploded, seeking anonymity in Florida's cultural backwater. Jennifer walked me to her car, her hand hovering near my elbow without quite touching. Let me drive you home. My truck's at the shop. Then let me buy you coffee tomorrow, as an apology. I studied her face in the hospital parking lot lights. Rain still misted around us, creating an intimate bubble. You don't owe me anything. I stepped on you. Accidents happen. This wasn't just an accident. Her words carried weight I wasn't ready to examine. The next morning, she appeared at my workshop door carrying 2 steaming cups and wearing jeans that hugged her curves like a second skin. My cast made opening the door awkward, and she slipped past me into the sacred space where I created music from dead wood. Wow, she breathed, turning slowly to take in the violins hanging from every surface. This is incredible. Pride swelled in my chest as she approached the Stradivarius on my workbench. May I? She asked, hovering her fingers above its surface. Just don't touch the varnish. She leaned closer, and I caught that intoxicating scent again. Vanilla and something darker, more complex. The wood looks alive. It is in a way. Old-growth maple, probably cut in the 1600s. I moved beside her, our shoulders almost touching. See how the grain runs here? That's what gives it the voice. Voice? I picked up my bow with my good hand, drawing it across the strings. The note that emerged was pure silk, flowing through the workshop like liquid gold. Jennifer closed her eyes, her lips slightly parted. That's beautiful, she whispered. That's only half restored. When I'm finished, it'll sing. She opened her eyes and found me staring at her face. Show me more. For the next 2 hours, I demonstrated techniques I'd perfected over decades. How to read wood grain, select the perfect varnish, achieve the microscopic precision that separated masterpieces from mediocrity. She absorbed everything, asking questions that proved she was truly listening. When she reached for a delicate carving tool, our fingers brushed. The contact sent electricity racing up my arm, and I jerked back so quickly I nearly knocked over a jar of varnish. Sorry, she said, though her eyes held no apology. Careful hands are essential in this work. Are yours always steady? She was looking at me now, not the violin. Usually. The word came out rougher than intended. Something shifted between us in that moment, a recognition neither of us was ready to name. The air grew thick with possibility and danger, 2 forces I'd spent my adult life trying to avoid in equal measure. I should go, she said finally, but made no move toward the door. Probably. Thank you for showing me this world. Thank you for the coffee. We stood there, drowning in the space between words, until she finally gathered her courage and left. I watched through my window as she drove away, her blonde hair catching the morning sunlight. My hand throbbed, but a different ache had begun in my chest. 3 days later, Jennifer returned with a camera crew. I'd been expecting her since she called about the interview, but seeing her in professional mode still caught me off guard. She wore a navy blazer that emphasized her curves and carried herself with the confidence of someone who owned every room she entered. This is Margaret Foster, she announced to her cameraman, one of the country's most skilled violin restorers. You're exaggerating. Am I? She pulled out a tablet, showing research she'd done on my work. Restoration of the Mendelssohn violin, the Portland Symphony's 1035 Guarneri, the lost Mozart manuscript discovery. You're more famous than you pretend. Heat crept up my neck. I'd forgotten that journalists actually investigated their subjects. I prefer privacy. Too late for that now. Her smile was wicked, almost predatory. The interview flowed smoothly once we began. She asked about my techniques, my philosophy, the emotional connection between craftsman and instrument. Her questions revealed deeper research than I'd expected, and I found myself opening up about concepts I'd never articulated before. You speak about these violins like they're alive, she observed during a break. Because they are. Every piece of wood has memory, personality. My job is to honor that while fixing what's broken. What about people? The question came from nowhere, catching me unprepared. People are more complicated. But the principle's the same? Honor what exists while fixing what's damaged? I studied her face, searching for the real question beneath her words. People have to want to be fixed first. And if they don't know they're broken, then they're the most dangerous kind. Something flickered in her blue eyes, a vulnerability she quickly masked. The cameraman called for another take, breaking our intimate bubble. That evening, I did something I'd never done before. I watched the evening news religiously. Jennifer appeared on my ancient television like a vision, her intelligence, and grace commanding attention even through the fuzzy reception. She reported on city council meetings and traffic accidents with the same dedication she'd shown to my violins. During a commercial break, my phone rang. How was I? Her voice was softer than her professional persona. Terrifying. She laughed, rich and genuine. That's the nicest thing anyone's said about my work in months. I meant beautiful. You're beautiful on camera. Silence stretched between us, loaded with implications. Thank you, she said finally. Would you like dinner? To celebrate the interview. Yes. We met at a small Italian place downtown, away from the trendy spots where she might be recognized. She'd changed from her blazer into a flowing dress that caught the candlelight and made my mouth go dry. Tell me about Boston, she said over wine. What about it? Why you left. I hesitated, then decided on partial truth. A relationship ended badly. I needed space to figure out who I was without someone else's expectations. Was she a musician too? The casual pronoun made my heart skip. How did you know? Lucky guess. Jennifer's smile was enigmatic. Was she? Cellist. We met at a chamber music festival. I took a sip of wine, remembering. She wanted me to be more social, more ambitious. Said I hid behind my work. Were you hiding? Maybe. It felt safer than being seen. And now? Now I'm having dinner with a woman who could expose my entire life to thousands of people. Would that be so terrible? The question hung between us like a musical note waiting for resolution. Around us, other diners laughed and flirted, oblivious to the tension crackling at our table. Depends what you plan to expose, I said. Just your talent. Unless there's something else you'd like me to know? Her foot brushed mine under the table, and I felt that dangerous electricity again. There might be. I'm a good listener. And a professional interrogator. Off the record then. We talked until the restaurant closed, conversation flowing like aged wine. She told me about growing up in Georgia, her college years studying journalism. The loneliness of always being on camera but never truly seen. I shared stories about my mentors, the meditation of handcraft, the way music lived in my bones. Walking to our cars, she moved closer than casual friendship required. I had a wonderful time tonight. So did I. The interview airs tomorrow. Will you watch? Probably not. I hate seeing myself on television. Then I'll watch for both of us. She leaned up and kissed my cheek, her lips lingering a heartbeat longer than friendship dictated. Her perfume enveloped me, and I fought the urge to turn my head and capture her mouth with mine. Good night, Margaret. Good night. I watched her drive away, my cheek still burning from her touch. In my workshop that night, I tried to work on the Stradivarius with my good hand, but concentration was impossible. All I could think about was blue eyes and the way she said my name like it was something precious. The violin would have to wait. Something far more dangerous was demanding my attention. The interview aired Thursday night, transforming me into something I'd never wanted to be, visible. Jennifer's camera had captured not just my techniques but my passion, making my quiet craft seem like high art. The phone rang all morning with reporters wanting follow-up stories. I was hiding in my workshop when she appeared at my door again, carrying coffee and wearing that smile that made my knees weak. Checking on your footage? I asked, though we both knew that wasn't why she'd come. Making sure you survived being famous for 5 minutes. Barely. She moved through my space like she belonged there, touching surfaces she'd learned to appreciate. The response has been incredible. The station wants a follow-up piece. About what? The business of art restoration. How craftspeople like you preserve culture. She paused by the Stradivarius, studying my progress. You've made real headway with one hand. Desperation is motivating. Is that what this is? She turned to face me, something different in her eyes. Desperation? The air between us shifted, charged with the tension we'd been dancing around for days. I set down my tools, giving her my full attention. What are you really asking, Jennifer? I'm asking if you feel it too. Feel what? This. She stepped closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in her blue eyes. This thing that's been building between us. My heart hammered against my ribs. I don't know what you mean. Don't lie to me, Margaret. You're better than that. She was right. I was lying, to her and to myself. What I feel doesn't matter. Why not? Because you're straight, because you're younger, because you have a career that could be destroyed by association with someone like me. Someone like you? Her voice sharpened. What exactly do you think you are? Complicated. So am I. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. I bought you something. Inside was a delicate silver pin shaped like a tiny violin, its details exquisite. Jennifer, this is beautiful, but I can't accept. Yes, you can. She took it from the box, stepping close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. Turn around. I obeyed, trembling as she fastened the pin to my shirt. Her fingers brushed my collarbone, sending fire through my nervous system. When she finished, I turned back to face her. Perfect, she whispered. But she was looking at my face, not the pin. Jennifer. She silenced me by rising on her toes and pressing her lips to mine. The kiss was soft at first, tentative. A question more than a statement. But when I didn't pull away, when my good hand found the curve of her waist, she deepened it with a hunger that matched my own. Her mouth was warm and tasted like coffee and possibility. She kissed like she did everything else, with complete focus and devastating skill. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. That was insane, I finished. Worth it? I studied her flushed face, the way her lips were slightly swollen from our kiss. Terrifying. That's not an answer. Yes, I whispered. Worth it. She smiled, radiant and dangerous. Good. But even as she said it, reality crashed back in. I stepped away, putting distance between us before I did something we'd both regret. This can't happen. Why not? Because you don't know what you're asking for. Then tell me. I turned toward the window, watching traffic flow past my sanctuary. I'm not someone you experiment with, Jennifer. I'm not a phase you go through to figure yourself out. Who says I'm experimenting? Because that's what women like you do. You get curious, you take a walk on the wild side, then you go back to your real life with a story to tell. The silence behind me stretched so long I finally turned around. Her face was pale, hurt warring with anger in her expression. Women like me? Successful, straight, normal. You think I'm normal? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think any of this feels normal to me? It doesn't matter what it feels like. It matters what it is. She gathered her purse, movements sharp with wounded pride. You're right about one thing, Margaret. This is terrifying. But not for the reasons you think. Jennifer, wait. No. She paused at the door, looking back with eyes that had gone cold. Thank you for the lesson. About more than just violins. She left, taking all the warmth from the room with her. I stood alone among my instruments, the taste of her still on my lips, wondering how something so right could feel so impossibly wrong. The Stradivarius watched from its stand, half restored and patient. Just like me, it would have to wait for healing that might never come. Outside, storm clouds gathered over St. Petersburg, matching the chaos building in my chest. 3 days passed without word from Jennifer. I threw myself into violin work with desperate intensity, but even the Stradivarius couldn't silence the ache in my chest. My cast made everything clumsy, forcing me to rely on assistance for the delicate work I normally treasured. That's when Erica Hall appeared at my door. She was striking in an obvious way. Auburn hair, green eyes, perfectly applied makeup despite the morning heat. Everything about her screamed confidence and success, from her designer heels to her practiced smile. Margaret Foster? She extended a manicured hand. I'm Erica Hall, Jennifer's friend. My stomach dropped. Is she okay? She's fine. Confused, but fine. Erica stepped into my workshop without invitation, her gaze cataloging every surface. Impressive setup. No wonder she's been so distracted lately. What do you want? To meet the woman who's turned my best friend's world upside down. I bristled at her proprietary tone. Jennifer's a grown woman. She is. But she's also been my closest friend since we were 8. Erica picked up one of my carving tools, testing its weight. We grew up together in Savannah, shared everything, clothes, secrets, first kisses. First kisses? Behind the chapel at summer camp. We were 12. Her smile was calculated to wound. Curious little girls experimenting, you know how it is. I didn't, but I wasn't giving her more ammunition. Jennifer called me yesterday, Erica continued, setting down the tool. She's having what you might call an identity crisis. That's between her and me. Actually, it's between her and me now. Erica moved closer, invading my space with practiced aggression. See, Jennifer's been sheltered. Good Southern girl, proper family, expected trajectory. She's never had the chance to explore certain aspects of herself. What does that have to do with you? I offered to help her figure things out. The words hit like a physical blow. Help her how? By being her safe space to experiment. Someone she trusts, who won't judge her or make demands she can't meet. Erica's smile was sharp as broken glass. Someone who knows her better than a stranger with obvious issues. Issues? The caste, the isolation, the way you live like a hermit in this dusty workshop. She gestured dismissively. Jennifer needs stability, not whatever midlife crisis you're projecting onto her. Heat flooded my face. You don't know anything about me. I know you kissed her. I know you scared her enough that she called me crying. Erica moved toward the door, her message delivered. And I know she's coming to my place tonight to figure out if what she felt with you was real or just curiosity. Jennifer wouldn't. Ask her yourself, if you can find her. After Erica left, I sat among my instruments feeling like I'd been gutted. The workshop that had always been my sanctuary felt like a tomb. I tried Jennifer's phone repeatedly, but every call went straight to voicemail. By evening, desperation drove me to her apartment building. I waited in the parking lot like a stalker, watching for her car. When she finally appeared, she wasn't alone. Erica emerged from the passenger seat laughing at something Jennifer had said. They moved together with the easy intimacy of longtime friends, Erica's hand resting possessively on Jennifer's lower back as they walked toward the building. Jennifer looked radiant in a way that made my chest constrict. She wore a flowing dress I'd never seen, her hair loose around her shoulders. When Erica leaned close to whisper something in her ear, Jennifer's laughter carried across the parking lot like music I'd never hear again. They disappeared into the building without Jennifer ever noticing my truck in the shadows. I drove home in a daze, my phone buzzing with a text I was afraid to read. When I finally looked, Jennifer's words confirmed my worst fears. Spending the night at Erica's. Need to figure some things out. Please, don't call. In my workshop, I picked up my violin bow with shaking hands and drew it across the Stradivarius strings. The notes that emerged were broken, discordant, matching the chaos in my soul. I'd been right about women like Jennifer. Beautiful, successful creatures who sampled experiences like fine wines before returning to their proper lives. The fact that it hurt this much only proved how foolish I'd been to hope for something different. The violin's reflection caught the lamplight, its wounded surface a mirror of my own damage. Some things, once broken, could never truly be whole again. I was living proof of that truth. Outside, St. Petersburg settled into another humid night while I worked alone, trying to repair what could be fixed and learning to live with what couldn't. Jennifer was gone, exploring new territories with someone safer than me, someone who wouldn't demand she choose between curiosity and commitment. The Stradivarius would survive my broken heart. It had endured 3 centuries of human drama and would outlast whatever foolish hopes I'd harbored for 5 impossible days. But as I worked through the night, her taste still lingered on my lips like a ghost of what might have been. For 2 weeks, I buried myself in the Stradivarius restoration with monastic devotion. My cast had been removed, leaving my hand weak but functional, and I poured all my frustrated energy into perfecting every microscopic detail. The violin was becoming a masterpiece, but I felt dead inside. Jennifer's face haunted my evening news broadcasts. She looked different somehow, more polished but less alive. Her smiles seemed forced, her usual spark dimmed. I told myself it was projection, that I was seeing what I wanted to see. I was wrong. Sophia, my apprentice, brought me lunch and gossip one Thursday afternoon. Your reporter friend was here yesterday, she mentioned casually while organizing my tools. My hands stilled on the violin's bridge. Jennifer was here? Around noon. She looked terrible, like she hadn't slept. Sophia's dark eyes held sympathy. I told her you were at the supply store, but I think she knew I was lying. What did she want? To apologize, I think. She kept staring at your workbench, touching things like they might disappear. That evening, I watched Jennifer's broadcast with new eyes. During a segment about community arts funding, she spoke with unusual passion about preserving traditional crafts. Her voice catching when she mentioned the dedicated artisans who keep our cultural heritage alive. She was talking about me. The realization hit like a physical blow. While I'd been nursing my wounded pride, assuming I'd been replaced by safe experimentation, Jennifer had been suffering too. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Erica. We need to talk. Cafe Luna, tomorrow at 2. I stared at the message for an hour before responding, why? Her reply was immediate, because I love her too much to watch her destroy herself over you. Cafe Luna was crowded with lunch stragglers when I arrived. Erica sat in a corner booth, looking nothing like the polished predator who'd invaded my workshop. Her makeup was minimal, her designer clothes replaced by jeans and a simple blouse. Thank you for coming, she said, as I slid into the opposite seat. What do you want, Erica? To tell you the truth. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup like it was an anchor. Jennifer wasn't with me that night. My world tilted. What? She came to my apartment, yes, but she spent 3 hours crying on my couch before going home alone. Erica's voice was steady, matter of fact. She never touched me, never even considered it. Then why? Because I'm an idiot who thought I could win her by default. Her laugh was bitter. I've been in love with Jennifer since we were teenagers. When she called about you, confused and scared, I saw my chance. So, you lied. I let you assume. There's a difference. Not from where I'm sitting. Erica leaned forward, her green eyes intense. She's been miserable for 2 weeks, barely eating, working 18-hour days, jumping every time her phone rings hoping it's you. She told me not to call. Because she thought you were right, that she was just experimenting, using you to figure herself out. Erica's voice dropped. She's not, Margaret. Whatever this is between you two, it's real. I studied her face, searching for deception. Why are you telling me this? Because watching her suffer is killing me, and because she deserves to be happy, even if it's not with me. What about your grand plan? She barely let me hold her while she cried. The few times I tried to comfort her physically, she pulled away like I was poison. Erica smiled sadly. Pretty clear message. My phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer, Margaret. If you're watching tonight, I need you to know something important. I looked up to find Erica reading over my shoulder. She's doing the Friday night editorial tonight, 7:30. About what? See for yourself. That evening, I sat in my workshop with the television volume turned high. Jennifer appeared on screen wearing the navy blazer from our interview, but her usual professional mask had cracked. She looked directly into the camera like she was speaking to one person. Good evening. Tonight I want to talk about authenticity. About the courage it takes to live honestly in a world that rewards conformity. Her voice was steady, but I could see the vulnerability in her eyes. Too often, we let fear dictate our choices. We choose safety over truth, comfort over growth, other people's expectations over our own hearts. She paused, touching the violin pin she still wore on her lapel. We tell ourselves we're protecting those we care about, when really we're protecting ourselves from disappointment. My breath caught. She was talking to me. But some connections are worth the risk. Some people are worth fighting for, even when we don't know how the story ends. Her voice grew stronger. Especially then. She looked directly into the camera, and I swear she could see me. To anyone watching who has let fear make their choices, it's not too late. It's never too late to choose love over safety. The broadcast ended, but I sat frozen in my chair. Outside, thunder rumbled across St. Petersburg, promising another spring storm. Inside my workshop, the Stradivarius waited on its stand, finally perfect after weeks of patient restoration. Some things, I realized, were worth repairing no matter how many times they broke. I reached for my phone. I stared at my phone for 20 minutes, typing and deleting messages I couldn't find the courage to send. The storm building outside seemed to mirror the chaos in my chest, thunder rolling across St. Petersburg like a warning. Finally, I drove to her apartment without a plan, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The rain started just as I parked, fat drops splashing against my windshield like tears. I was still debating whether to leave when Jennifer's car pulled into the lot. She sat in her driver's seat for long moments, her hands pressed to her face. When she finally emerged, she looked exhausted, her perfect news anchor facade completely gone. She spotted me immediately and froze, rain already soaking her blazer. We stared at each other across 20 feet of parking lot and 2 weeks of misunderstanding. Margaret? Her voice was barely audible over the storm. I climbed out of my truck, rain instantly drenching my hair and clothes. I saw your broadcast. You hate me. No. I walked toward her, my heart hammering. I'm an idiot. We're both idiots. We stood there getting soaked, neither willing to make the first move. Lightning illuminated her face, showing tears mixing with rainwater on her cheeks. I never touched her, Jennifer said suddenly. Erica. I couldn't. All I could think about was you. I know, she told me. You talked to her? This afternoon. She loves you too much to watch you suffer for my stupidity. Jennifer's face crumpled. I thought you were right. That I was just curious, experimenting with feelings I didn't understand. Were you? No. She stepped closer, rain streaming between us. This terrifies me, Margaret, but it's not curiosity. It's not safe exploration, it's you. Thunder crashed overhead, and suddenly we were moving toward each other, meeting, in the middle of the parking lot like two forces of nature colliding. Her mouth found mine desperately, hungrily, and I kissed her back with 2 weeks of pent-up longing. Come upstairs, she whispered against my lips. Her apartment was elegant and impersonal, all clean lines and neutral colors. But when she turned to face me in her living room, dripping and beautiful, it became the most intimate space I'd ever entered. I don't know what I'm doing, she admitted. Neither do I. I've never been with a woman before. I know. She reached for me, her fingers trembling as they traced my face. Teach me? I captured her hand and kissed her palm. We'll learn together. What happened next unfolded like music, slow and building toward crescendo. We moved to her bedroom with tentative touches and whispered confessions. She was eager but nervous when we finally came together, her body, responding to mine with a passion that felt both new and ancient. I worshipped her curves with gentle hands, showing her how women loved differently, more completely. She gasped my name when I found the places that made her tremble, her fingers tangling in my hair as pleasure overwhelmed her inexperience. When she tried to return the favor, her touch was clumsy but reverent, learning my body like a new language she was desperate to master. Afterward, we lay entwined in her sheets, rain still drumming against the windows. She traced patterns on my skin with fingertips that had discovered their true purpose. That was, she began, then trailed off. Different? Perfect. She lifted her head to look at me. How did I not know what? That this was what I was missing. That you were what I was missing. I tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. Some people never figure it out. I almost didn't. But you did. She kissed me softly, tasting like rain and new beginnings. Margaret? Yes? I love you. The words hit me like lightning, illuminating everything I'd been too afraid to acknowledge. I love you too. Even though I'm complicated? Especially because you're complicated. She curled against my side, her breathing gradually evening out. Outside, the storm was passing, leaving only the gentle patter of rain on glass. In the quiet darkness of her bedroom, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Jennifer was already asleep, her face soft and unguarded in the dim light. She'd risked everything to find me in that parking lot, choosing truth over safety just like she'd challenged others to do in her broadcast. I thought about my response to Erica's revelation, how I'd driven through. The the storm to find Jennifer instead of hiding in my workshop. Some risks were worth taking, even if they left you vulnerable. The Stradivarius waited in my workshop, finally restored to its original glory. But lying here with Jennifer's warmth against my skin, I realized that some kinds of healing couldn't be rushed. They required patience, trust, and the courage to let someone love you despite your broken places. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Her career, my privacy, the judgment of people who couldn't understand what we'd found together. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, we had discovered something worth fighting for. 3 weeks of stolen moments had turned us greedy. Jennifer would arrive at my workshop with morning coffee and stay until late evening, learning the subtleties of my craft while I learned the geography of her heart. We were careful, meeting only in private spaces, but love made us careless in other ways. I should have known photographers watched everything in a town like St. Petersburg. The picture showed Jennifer leaving my apartment at 6 a.m., her hair mussed from sleep, wearing my oversized shirt. The photographer had captured her looking back at my door with such tenderness that our relationship was undeniable. Margaret. Jennifer's voice cracked through my phone. Have you seen the Sentinel? My stomach plummeted. No. Front page, entertainment section. They're calling it a developing story. I found the paper online, my hands shaking as I read the headline, Local News Anchor's Secret Romance. The article was tastefully written but devastating in its implications, questioning Jennifer's professional judgment and personal choices that might affect her credibility. Within hours, my workshop was surrounded by news vans. I barricaded myself inside, while strangers with cameras tried to peer through my windows. My phone rang constantly with reporters seeking comment on the nature of my relationship with respected journalist Jennifer Henderson. Jennifer called that evening, her voice hollow. The station wants to meet tomorrow. What will you tell them? The truth. Jennifer, your career is less important than you are. My heart clenched. Don't sacrifice everything for me. It's not sacrifice if it's choice. The next day brought a circus. More photographers appeared outside my workshop, joined by protesters with signs reading, "Protect traditional values," and counter-protesters supporting "Love is love." I watched from my window as strangers fought over my private life on the sidewalk. Sophia arrived with groceries and gossip. The news station's parking lot looks like a war zone, she reported. Jennifer went in the back entrance this morning looking like she hadn't slept. I spent the day pacing among my violins, unable to work while Jennifer faced judgment for loving me. When evening came without word, I broke my self-imposed exile and drove to her apartment. She was sitting on her couch, still wearing her blazer, staring at nothing. The television was on but muted, showing footage of the chaos outside my workshop. How bad? I asked, settling beside her. They offered me a choice. Publicly deny the relationship and keep my job, or confirm it and face potential career consequences. What did you say? I told them I needed the weekend to decide. She turned to me with exhausted eyes. They suggested I might be happier in a smaller market, somewhere more accepting of alternative lifestyles. The euphemism stung. I'm sorry. For what? For being your alternative lifestyle. She kissed me softly, her lips warm and familiar. You're not alternative anything. You're my choice. That weekend, Jennifer disappeared from public view while speculation ran wild. I stayed hidden in my workshop, working on smaller repairs to keep my hands busy while my mind spun with worst-case scenarios. Sunday evening, she called. I'm doing the Monday night editorial. About what? About choosing authenticity over approval. Jennifer, I know what I'm risking. I also know what I'm fighting for. Monday night, I positioned myself in front of my television with Sophia and half the neighborhood watching. Jennifer appeared on screen, wearing the navy blazer that had become her armor, the violin pin glinting on her lapel. Good evening. I'm Jennifer Henderson, and tonight I want to address recent speculation about my personal life. She looked directly into the camera with the confidence I'd fallen in love with. For 2 weeks, photographers have documented my private relationships, questioning my judgment and fitness to serve this community as a journalist. My chest tightened. Let me be clear. I am in love with Margaret Foster. a brilliant artist who restores beauty to broken instruments. She is kind, talented, and has made me a better person simply by existing in my world." She paused, touching the violin pin unconsciously. "Some will say this disqualifies me from practicing journalism with integrity. I disagree. Love doesn't compromise credibility, dishonesty does. And I refuse to lie about the most honest thing in my life." The camera held her steady gaze. "If loving Margaret Foster costs me this career, then it was never the right career for me. But if this community can accept that love comes in many forms, then I hope to continue serving as your evening anchor for years to come." She smiled, radiant and unafraid. "To anyone watching who has hidden their truth for fear of judgment, you deserve better. We all deserve to love openly, without shame or apology." The broadcast ended in stunned silence. Then my phone exploded with calls and messages. Sophia whooped and hugged me while neighbors applauded outside my window. The response was mixed but powerful. The station received hundreds of calls, both supportive and critical. By Tuesday morning, 3 other local news outlets had offered Jennifer positions if her current employer couldn't appreciate her integrity. That evening, she appeared at my workshop door carrying champagne and wearing the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. "I'm keeping my job," she announced. The station decided controversy generates ratings. They're calling it progressive programming. I pulled her into my arms, spinning her around my workshop while violins watched from their stands like silent witnesses to triumph. "Are you sure about this?" I asked when we finally stopped laughing. "I've never been sure about anything in my life," she said, kissing me deeply. "Except you." 6 months later, I woke to the sound of Jennifer practicing scales on the violin I'd finished teaching her to play. Sunlight streamed through the windows of our shared bedroom, the one we'd created, by knocking out the wall between my apartment and the space next door. She stood by the window in one of my old work shirts, her blonde hair catching the morning light as she moved the bow across the strings with improving confidence. The melody was simple but sweet, a folk tune I'd taught her weeks ago. "You're getting better," I said from the bed. "Liar." She set the violin on its stand and crawled back beside me. "But I love trying. I love watching you try." She kissed me, tasting like coffee and morning promises. "Ready for today?" Today was the debut of the restored Stradivarius. The St. Petersburg Symphony had commissioned me to repair it for their season opener, and Jennifer was covering the concert for a special arts segment. More importantly, it was the night we'd chosen to make our commitment official. "Nervous?" she asked, reading my expression. "About the violin or the ceremony?" "Both." I pulled her closer, marveling at how perfectly she fit against my side. "The violin's ready. As for the other thing, having second thoughts? About marrying you in front of half the city? Never." She laughed, the sound filling our bedroom like music. "It's not marriage legally, but it feels right. More right than anything I've ever done." We'd planned the commitment ceremony for my workshop after the concert. Surrounded by the instruments that had brought us together, Sophia had arranged flowers while Thomas, Jennifer's cameraman, handled photography. Even Erica had offered to play music, having become an unexpected ally in our happiness. The morning passed in pleasant preparation. Jennifer left for the station while I made final adjustments to the Stradivarius, ensuring every detail was perfect for its debut. The instrument gleamed under my workshop lights, centuries of damage erased by months of careful restoration. That evening, the concert hall buzzed with anticipation. I sat in the front row watching Jennifer work, interviewing musicians and patrons about the significance of preserving musical heritage. She wore the navy blazer that had become her trademark, the violin pin catching stage lights as she moved. When the concertmaster lifted the Stradivarius for the opening piece, my heart hammered with pride and terror. 3 centuries of history rested in his hands, brought back to life through my craft. The first note silenced every breath in the hall. Pure, crystalline sound flowed from the restored instrument, filling the space with music that seemed to transcend time itself. The violin sang with a voice I'd dreamed of but never quite imagined, each phrase more perfect than the last. Tears streamed down my face as the piece concluded to thunderous applause. Jennifer found me in the crowd, her own eyes bright with emotion. "You did that," she whispered against my ear. "You brought that beauty back to the world." We both did. Your broadcast about arts funding helped save the restoration program. Team effort? Always. An hour later, our friends gathered in my workshop for the ceremony. Sophia had transformed the space with candles and garland, while my violins provided ambient accompaniment as Erica played guitar. The restored Stradivarius held the place of honor on my workbench, witnessing our vows like a musical godparent. We'd written our own promises, words that acknowledged both our differences and our compatibility. Jennifer spoke about finding her true voice through loving me. I talked about learning that some repairs made things stronger than they'd ever been before. When we exchanged rings, simple bands engraved with musical notes, the small crowd erupted in celebration. Thomas captured every moment, while Sophia threw rose petals that scattered among violin shavings on my workshop floor. Later, after our guests had gone, Jennifer and I slow danced to her humming in the candlelit workshop. The Stradivarius watched from its stand, our own love story written in the grain of restored wood around us. No regrets? I asked as we swayed together. Only that we waited so long to find each other. Worth the career drama, the media attention? Worth everything. She pulled back to look at me. You know what the strangest part is? What? I used to think love was supposed to be easy. That when you found the right person, everything would just fall into place. And now? Now I know love isn't easy. It's worth it. She smiled, radiant in the flickering candlelight. There's a difference. Outside our workshop, St. Petersburg settled into another warm night. But inside, surrounded by centuries of musical history and our own new beginning, we held each other and planned tomorrow. Some things broke beyond repair. Others, with patience and skill and love, could be restored to sing more beautifully than ever before. The Stradivarius wasn't the only masterpiece I'd completed that year.